Being woke means never having to say you're sorry.
Woke means never letting anyone say they're sorry.
Woke is racist.
Big woke means equity, diversification, gender, and racial disparities.
This wokeness that's happening at Madison's house and Jefferson's house, where all they do is talk about slavery.
Wokeism is about murdering fun.
You know what woke means? It means you're a loser.
Woke madness, now it's drag queens and children and church.
The woke is the new religion of the left.
The new hip woke is to not like the Jews.
What does it mean to be woke?
I don't know what the definition of woke so much is. I do know that I think most people don't want to be lectured by companies.
Get paint. It's taken 6 weeks to get a sample. It's terrible. We used to get it in 2 weeks.
What do you attribute a lot of this to?
Woke.
Conservatives struggle to define woke, often framing it as an ideology that promotes racial and gender equity at the expense of traditional values. They argue that woke culture is divisive, joyless, and imposes unwanted moralizing, particularly in areas like education and media, leading to societal polarization.
That they believe, for instance, that being a woman should be merely the first step in a wider mission to bring down capitalism. Now, I don't think most women are on board with that, and most women would be rather surprised to be utilized in this fashion. But that is very clearly and explicitly, and I quote the various scholars and writers who've been pushing this for years, this is explicitly the aim. It's a basis for madness. When people say the gay community, who are you talking about? It's like, women think this. Oh, really? 50% of the species all agree on something. Blacks say this. Really? Now, this is, let me put it another way. If somebody said, I don't know, I just love the working class. Who?
Yeah.
I just love the middle class. Who? I love the upper class. Who are you talking about? And it's the same with this. Why would we be falling for this interpretation of society as depending solely or primarily on interest groups based on gender/sex, sexual orientation, race, and a bit more? Why would we be doing that? Why would we be taking the individualism out of individuals and lumping them in these demonstrably...
Douglas Murray critiques the woke ideology, arguing it reduces individuals to mere representatives of gender, race, or sexual orientation, stripping away their individuality. He highlights the absurdity of the notion that entire groups like women or the LGBT community share a monolithic view.
Bodies that don't even exist. They don't even exist. The LGBT community. Take me to your leader. Come on. And it's why, as I say, you can always predict exactly who is going to latch onto the latest claim. When, for instance, the big bearded man with male genitalia wins the women's weightlifting competition, you can predict with 100% accuracy who is going to say, yeah, what's the problem with that? And the people who are going to say, I'm not sure Clive, the big weightlifter, should be winning the women's category. You can predict it. And the people who say, why have you got a problem with that, bigot, are always the same people who believed in the past that our societies needed to be pulled apart in another fashion. And now they'd like to do it in this fashion. It has this hideous red interior which keeps exposing itself as desiring not a better relationship between ourselves and our environment, but, for instance, the end of capitalism.
Yeah.
This new morality we're trying to construct relies on us pretending we know about things that we don't know about, trans, and simultaneously demands that we pretend not to know about things that we all knew till yesterday.
Murray contends that this ideology ultimately aims to dismantle capitalism rather than fostering genuine understanding or improving society, and leads to a distorted perception of reality.
This country is responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions, which means that if Britain was to sink into the sea right now, it would make absolutely no difference to the issue of climate change. You know why? Because the future of the climate is going to be decided in Asia and in Latin America by poor people who couldn't give a about saving the planet. There is only one thing we can do in this country to stop climate change, and that is to make scientific and technological breakthroughs that will create the clean energy that is not only clean, but also cheap. And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims, to believe that you have no agency, to believe that what you must do to improve the world is to complain, is to protest, is to throw soup on paintings. We know that the way to improve the world is to work, is to create, it is to build. And the problem with woke culture is that it's trained too many young minds like yours to forget about that.
Yes.
The slow hand clap. That's what every comedian works for, Piers.
Let me do it faster. I've done the Oxford Union, tough crowd normally, but you actually won a lot of them over. They were quite respectful. And I think you were probably a bit surprised by the response. It's gone viral, global, all over America as well, because it really resonated with people, I think, rather like me, where, you know, I'm not right-wing, I'm not left-wing, I'm kind of slightly centre, I guess, politically about stuff. A liberal more than not, but I find this ultra-woke mentality so illiberal that it borders on the very fascism they profess to hate most. So to see you go into the lion's den a bit with all these woke students, and actually what I thought was impressive about it, Constantine, was the way you didn't demonise them. And maybe that is the way to progress and get this woke.
Konstantin Kisin and Piers Morgan engaged in a compelling discussion on the flaws of woke culture. Kisin's viral Oxford Union speech highlighted the inefficacy of woke ideology in addressing global challenges, particularly climate change.
Straight white guys like me, a series of offensive stereotypical labels, which I find very offensive.
Okay, this is why there's a problem, because you're taking it personally.
There is a problem. I am taking it personally. Yes.
It isn't about
when you
though,
say
Piers.
all white people are racist, as a white person, I find that offensive.
Please let me speak instead of speaking over
The
me.
floor is yours.
Okay, so basically, instead of taking it personally, please think about how to be part of the solution.
Why don't you think about being part of the solution?
I am part of the solution.
You're not. You're causing more division.
I'm not causing more division.
You're basically causing more division.
Piers, by speaking
by telling
Piers,
all white people
Piers,
they're racist.
Let me speak. By talking about racism is not causing divide. There's a divide anyway. We need to be speaking about what the root of racism, what the root of sexism is. And sexism doesn't come from women. So of course it's caused by men. This is a social construct.
You don't think women can be sexist?
I don't think that women can enforce misogyny.
What a load of nonsense.
No, because it's all...
You don't think any women can be
women
sexist?
Don't uphold the patriarchy, Piers. That is not the case. The patriarchy.
What's that?
You don't know what the patriarchy is.
I do, but explain it.
The patriarchy is basically a structure that puts men at the top of power. So it's not women that enforce the patriarchy, because women don't have anything to...
The 5 most powerful people in this country currently are women. How does that sit with your patriarchy?
So you're saying that the patriarchy doesn't exist?
I'm saying the 5 most powerful people in Britain are women. So this idea that men still rule the entire planet and are these evil creatures to be removed from power doesn't really stack up with the facts.
Piers, but the patriarchy exists.
My point about this is, of course there are serious debates to be had about racism, but my God, the world has moved, and moved fast. From
Piers,
where it used to be.
You are part of the problem.
I'm not part of the problem.
You are part of the problem, Piers, because you are denying my lived experience.
What do you mean? I'm not denying you anything.
You're speaking over me, for one.
Well, no, now you're playing your old trick of being the victim. And you played that you immediately came out after you were fired.
The model emphasized that her statement was not about individual white people being inherently racist, but about the societal structures that socialize them into racism. The backlash was intense, with many accusing her of being divisive, but she stood by her words, urging people to be part of the solution.
It's dealt with properly is that you don't demonize them, you actually show them a better way.
I think so, and like you, I identify as politically non-binary, Piers, and so that's the angle I was approaching from. And look, the fact is, both you and I know that when we were 18, 20, we were idiots as well, and we were very cocky and sure of ourselves, and we thought we knew the answers to everything.
What we didn't have was the internet to brainwash us.
And we didn't have this very powerful ideology, actually. Wokeness is an ideology, and there's some very strong concepts behind it. But that all aside, I mean, I found that I had a very interesting encounter, because you once have seen this, but we had to wait quite a long time before the debate started. And I actually was talking to one of the students in the bar, and she couldn't believe that I even thought the woke people existed. Like, to her, this was unicorns. But she came up to me after the debate and asked for a selfie. And that's kind of what I thought really summed up the whole experience. We've got to remember, these are young people in their mind. They're open to persuasion. We got to make better arguments. And I think antagonizing people, and we've all been there, you and I and everything else, you know, my journey with my show, Trigonometry, it's been an evolution too.
Yes.
I haven't started out like this necessarily. But what I've come to now, and maybe it's being a father of a young child now as well, I'm starting to see that, you know, these are kids, and we have a responsibility to persuade them, to convince them with rational argument. And look, when you're speaking to bright people like the ones at Oxford, you've got a chance.
I mean, one of the worst aspects of wokery is the way that people now feel too afraid to express opinions. And it's becoming a real thing where people, you know, I had Dame Joan Collins on here, didn't want to say what she thought a woman was. And she's one of my favourite people in the world, Joan, and obviously knows what she believes a woman is, but didn't want to raise her head over a parapet just to be shot down by the trans lobby or whatever lobby it may be at any given moment. There's this mob mentality. If you don't agree with me, you must be cancelled immediately, shamed, vilified, J.K. Rowling, whoever it may be. How have we got to this place? What's fueling it? How do we deal with it?
Well, first of all, I know that you're shocked by it, and I think a lot of people in the West are shocked, but actually, as someone who grew up in the Soviet Union...
He argued that wokeness distracts from meaningful solutions by promoting victimhood and censorship. Morgan emphasized the dangerous rise of mob mentality and cancel culture, comparing it to the oppressive tactics of past regimes.
Exactly what we had, and that's one of the reasons I'm in this country, is my grandfather said the wrong thing and was forced into exile. So this is actually, if you think about human history, pretty standard. We just didn't expect it to be happening in the 21st century. And I think technology is a big part of it. Social media allows people to mob other people.
Well, it fuels also tribalism. It fuels this sort of righteous indignation that people, the victimhood.
And
people get
power. Don't forget, there's also
power. There's real power. And the power actually manifests itself from the mob going to corporate world and demanding that they fire people and get rid of people who don't agree with their view.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, particularly, and, you know, this isn't an attack, but, you know, if you don't have a lot of meaning in your own life, this is a way to get some meaning because you tap this thing on your phone or on your keyboard and suddenly a famous person's getting cancelled. I think that's a big part of it. But as I say, and as you frankly point out, I think the solution here is to be reasonable, to talk to people, to try and persuade them, while also, of course, we got to stand up and not allow these cancellations to happen. And that means that, you know, TV producers and big corporations, they have to step up as well.
I mean, I was forced out of my last job for disbelieving Meghan Markle, which seems preposterous now, given the nonsense that comes out of her mouth. But that showed me that when the mob attack the corporate world will often bow to the mob because actually they're just terrified of the consequences. They're terrified of losing advertising revenue, sponsors and so on. That's the way they do it. It's very well marshalled and well organised, albeit they're quite a small number of people. They're just well organised.
Yeah, and they're able to create the illusion that there is lots of them because on social media you can get a lot of traction with not a lot. But I think you're right. And I think the fact is that we're building an alternative ecosystem now. Shows like mine on YouTube and there's going to be companies that are making products that don't care if you're woke or not, advertisers that are not interested in the stuff. And I actually said this on Twitter today. I think the future isn't woke or anti-woke. The future is post-woke. We just got to move past this.
Well, the trouble is the word has become toxic. Originally, woke meant that you were just...
Both agreed on the importance of reasoned dialogue to counteract this divisive trend.
This idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. Yep. People who do really good stuff have flaws. Right. People who you are fighting may love their kids. And, you know, share certain things with you. And I think that one danger I see among young people, particularly on college campuses, Malia and I talk about this. Yara goes to school with my daughter. But I do get a sense sometimes now among certain young people, and this is accelerated by social media, there is this sense sometimes of the way of me making change is to be as judgmental as possible about other people. And that's enough. Like if I tweet or hashtag about how you didn't do something right or used the wrong verb, or then I can sit back and feel pretty good about myself. Because, man, you see how woke I was? I called you out. I'm going to get on TV, watch my show, watch Grownish. You know, that's not activism. That's not bringing about change. You know, if all you're doing is casting stones, you know, you're probably not going to get that far. That's easy to do.
Barack Obama criticizes the woke call-out culture, emphasizing that activism requires more than just judgment and social media posts. He argues that the world is complex, with people having both virtues and flaws. True activism involves understanding these nuances and working towards meaningful change rather than merely calling out others online.
You must have known when you wrote your very public Facebook post just how sensitive those words were going to be. I don't have the energy to talk about the racial violence of white people. Most of you refuse to acknowledge your existence, privilege and success as a race is built on the backs, blood and death of people of colour. Do you think that all white people are racist?
I don't think that all white people are by nature racist. From conception to birth, I think that we are all the same. But we need to speak about how we're socialised as a people. And my post was based on socialisation and racism as a structure. I think as a society, we're taught certain things. We're taught that men are superior to women. We're taught that women are meant to be submissive. We're taught that gay people are meant to be ashamed of their sexuality. But it doesn't mean that this is how things need to be.
Do you think all white people are responsible for that or believe that? Or
I don't think that all white people believe it, no. I think that there is cases, well, I mean, there's loads of allies. I mean, you don't need to think this way. And it takes actively dismantling racism to be an ally, because if you're not doing anything, then how are you helping racism?
So you said, when you explained about this, you said white people are racist due to socialisation in the same way that men are socialised to be sexist and heterosexual people are socialised to be homophobic. So yes. I'm a white, straight male guy.
It's not about you.
So basically, I'm like enemy number one. So I'm a racist, sexist, homophobe by your logic.
Sexist, yes, but
I'm not sexist.
Some of the things
and I'm not racist, and I'm not a homophobe. So who are you, with the greatest of respect to you, who are you to say that every straight white guy in the world is a... Well, you did. You said white people are racist due to socialisation in the same way that men are socialised to be sexist, heterosexual...
A transgender model recently sparked controversy by defending her comments, claiming that all white people are racist due to socialisation.
The insults you've had and so on and so on. Of course you're going to get insulted. I don't agree with the way they've insulted you, but when you call every white person racist and say we're all...
My mother's
well,
white.
I was going to
but when you say, I don't have the energy to talk about the racial violence of white people anymore, yes, all white people, when you call us a bunch of violent racists,
Where does slavery come from?
All of us, we are going to get annoyed.
Yeah, of course. But look at the responses that I've got. How dare you call us racist, you black? How dare you call us racist? Go back to the trees.
You can, of course, you can.
People don't know what racism is. We're not taught about racism. No, Piers, let me speak.
You can find abusive responses.
I came in here to speak. I came in here to speak.
You did, and I came in. I also wanted you in here so that I could look you in the eye and say, I think what you said was.
So you're making it about you, Piers?
No, well, it's my show. Along with Susanna.
Okay, why don't you just sit here and talk for 5 minutes then, and I just
You've done plenty of talking, Monroe. I've been watching your interviews. I want you to explain why we shouldn't be offended as white people by your sentence that all white people are party to racial violence?
Because socialization has placed all white people in a certain privilege that means that if you are not dismantling racism or helping to dismantle racism, then you are part of the problem, because that makes you complicit. You need to actively work with people of colour to put diversity, which this campaign was about, into place. And when L'Oreal fires me for speaking about the origins of racism, then that goes completely against what diversity is, because the reason why we need diversity is because we have racism.
You don't think
society.
any white people on the planet are currently doing what you've just suggested?
I didn't say that.
By implication, when you say
I'm
all
talking
white
about
people,
a structure.
that is what you're saying.
I'm talking about a structure that all white people sit on. I'm talking about society. I'm not talking about literally every single white person. I'm talking about society, and all white people exist within that structure.
Do you regret?
In a public Facebook post, she highlighted the racial violence perpetuated by white people and criticized their refusal to acknowledge their privilege, which she argued is built on the exploitation of people of color.